Final Hour Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dog Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan, our best bets later in the hour. We only got one game in the NHL tonight. You missed this assignment, eh, Noodles? Ottawa, Nashville tonight. That one hurts. I knew it would.
That's a kick in the pills, man.
It hurts my heart, guys. Like, I honestly, I had a buddy text me this afternoon and go, Are you gooned already? And I was like, what? Like, and he goes, aren't you in Nashville? And I go, no, I think it's a Monday. Isn't it a prime game?
It's a prime game tonight. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Prime came in and jacked up your
Dude, you
dreams.
should have just made up an excuse and said, I'm on radio today. I'm doing the call on radio.
Right.
Yeah, do some recon, just fly into Nashville and just be sitting there. I'll do it from what if I did the show from Legends in the corner, just sitting there?
It'd be fine by us. Why not? I mean, there's only one game in the NHL, and Ottawa is red hot. Like, they are red hot right now. It's a good scene if you're an Ottawa Senator fan.
Well, they got a little. You can go back. Like on the weekend, they just everything fell together against Minnesota. I didn't like that Hartman hit. That was greasy, man. Like I don't know if you saw that.
I think they're going to toss the book at him for that, man.
He's a greasy player, man.
He's
done that a lot in his career.
But it just was like, dude, that's kind of greasy, man. Like, I don't know if you tack on a couple for greasiness.
Called? Is that the DDT or something?
Suplex, man.
Yeah.
Suplex?
But he's done stuff off the draw before, right? Like he
high stick somebody.
Yeah.
He had a greasy play against the Oilers this year. Edmonton was beating him, and with about 2 minutes left, he pushed like he was. Evan Bouchard was trying to go back, and he pushed him into the net, and Bouchard ended up leaving the game. It was a greasy move. I was
he's
like,
a grease ball, this guy, man.
Dangerous move. But he's the type of guy that you're like, God, but then you're like, boy, I kind of would take him on my team because he's a pretty good player, too.
Well, guys, I was joking about Lindy Ruff, but didn't something happen in Buffalo yesterday where Lindy Ruff was outraged? Somebody hit, like, Tage Thompson.
Well, Tage Thompson got smoked.
Oh, that was a bad hit. That was a bad hit.
Lindy was like, well, I guess a couple guys could have got him, but they didn't. And then guys on the team were saying we didn't see who did it. So for everybody that says only Toronto Maple Leaf fans outrage about not responding, they're pretty pissed in Buffalo, I think.
Yeah, he was having flashbacks to Lucic running over Ryan Miller, right? Lindy Ruff was the head coach back then, and that was like a massive, massive story. And
well, Lucic is a different animal where you're like, okay, the only chance you got is if you break your stick across the back of his legs.
Right, but that one kind of warranted it. Like Miller was out of his net, but he did not slow down or try to move.
Well, what are you going to do, Hayes, if you're the D and you're like,
I hear you. Probably what you just said. It's a chop, hack, and grab.
Chop as hard as you can and then act like the guy beside you did it.
Right. It's not a drop the gloves and meet at center ice necessarily.
Oh, no. You break your stick on him and you wait for the linesman to get in and then you act like you're going, like you got to have, like it's a pile. It's a dog pile. You get on top of him. That's what I would do. But
there's a guy in Buffalo that makes the most hilarious banners. Like he hangs banners online. Like this one says, they saw the guy that hit Thompson, but they didn't do anything about it. And it's like in a banner form in the odd. And like they're Buffalo's, because they're not obviously a great team this year. But he makes these banners for them. It's just, it's crazy.
It's not a good look, man. I saw, there were, like a lot of people were on about it last night. I think Barnaby was tweeting about it. I think Matthew, and you know how he would have reacted. He would have come in flying, obviously, back in the day. But
Rob Ray, dude.
Exactly. And it's not that era. We're not playing in that era anymore, not living in that era. But, like, Buffalo's season is gone. They're awful again. Tage Thompson's been red hot recently, and he got clipped last night, and no one did anything about it, which means the next time they play, someone will. It'll be a fight off the draw or whatever. They'll figure out who did what. Like that Cooley hit on Pietrangelo last night. That was one of the biggest hits I've ever seen in my life, man.
That is crazy.
He
launched into him, and it was like, I thought Petro was like, okay, I moved the puck. There's no trouble, no foul around here. And this guy just said, I am going to run you through the boards.
Unreal. Do you remember the hit Dustin Byfuglien had on the wall? It was Byfuglien. And then Dion had one, I think it was on Mark Stone. Phaneuf on Stone along the wall. Like there's been some big hits along in the league and over the years.
I think Stone
Scott Stevens
was Byfuglien too. Buffalo got stoned
well,
along
Buffalo
the wall.
had a couple guys that he
murdered people.
He got a couple guys, man. There was that famous one, PK on Marchand, when Marchand was coming down the wing and PK stepped in and just buried him.
But guys, that begs the bigger question. Like, are we in a league now where a coach is telling the guys to hit, forecheck heavy and finish your checks, and if you do, you got to fight somebody? That's one aspect about the game I don't understand. Like, I used to label guys. I used to hit tough guys. I didn't have to fight people. Like, I find it crazy, man. You hit somebody, you got to fight. That's just the way they do business now. I find it crazy.
It's a different world now.
But Jamie, look at that kid. Like, you coolly hit Pietrangelo. It's like, okay, you had your head down, I hit you. As soon as he turns around, he's got to fight somebody. I do not agree with that aspect.
Glove. He actually turned around and knew it was coming.
But he shouldn't have to.
Destroyed. You're right, but I think in an era where Pietrangelo, he would either handle it himself or his teammates would stand in. Like, there was just more accountability, or there were just more big hits, and guys would be like, "I'll take care of this myself." The hits aren't. How many big hits have we seen this year? Period. You can count on one hand, type of thing, where it was every night in the league.
Matt, and I do think you have to consider maybe the player in this. Oh, there's the Buffalo hit on Stone. And then is that Danny Heatley coming in flying? No,
I thought that was Zach Smith.
Okay, Zach Smith. That would make sense. Wasn't Danny Heatley? No chance. He was 15.
That's the guy who break his stick over you.
Yes, Zach Smith would have happily done that. But like Petrangelo's one thing. Tage Thompson's their star and their team stinks. Like, I think it's circumstantial. Like, if you hit Matt Rempe or something, then no one's flying in. Yeah. But if you hit
as a coach, you're thinking, like, where are your heads at, man?
Yeah.
Like, do you guys even care about anything?
That's the thing, right? And I think that's what Lindy Ruff is disappointed about. Here's Chris Johnston, our TSN hockey insider. Did you see those hits? Yes, I'm sure you did, CJ. And what do you make of Lindy Ruff kind of not overly happy about his own team not fighting for Tage Thompson?
I get it. I mean, look, Buffalo's looking for something to rally around. That organization has been questioned in a lot of ways. I mean, I think in you're right. Today's game just is not. It's not the same sport that O played in, or when Noodles was in the league, and just with the physicality specifically. But I think Buffalo's looking to have a lunch bucket kind of team, and that isn't a lunch bucket kind of response. I think it's that simple. It's about, quite honestly, I think that message is a message to the fans. I think it's about business. More than anything, the team's business interests. And obviously they've taken a lot of heat in that market. I've been following Mike Harrington, one of the columnists down there from afar, and he's just been teeing off on them over this. So I can understand where they're, why they're getting some heat, I guess, in that situation.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. In the market, everyone hates the team. Like, that's the reality. Right. Everyone hates the team. They're looking for a reason to hate them even more. And, this would be an example of that, I guess. But, yeah, there was a lot of movement over the weekend. And I guess we'll begin Friday night. JT Miller eventually ends up in New York. He had always been connected to the Rangers. It always felt somewhat like a foregone conclusion. That's where he would end up. They get Hedl, a young defenseman, and a pick that's protected. Like, did Vancouver get enough here, in your opinion, or did they back themselves into such a corner that it just wasn't possible for them to get a lot?
Yeah, I think it's more that, the latter there. I mean, when you're trading a player who had a 100-point season last year, and you look at that return, like, if you just were to take those two facts, I mean, it's hard to argue they got enough in this trade, but, we've all seen what's happened over the last 6, 7, 8 weeks in that market. With that team, I mean, they're not in a playoff spot right now, and it's pretty evident that everything that's gone on there behind the scenes, and I can't profess to even know the half of it, but we know enough to know that it hasn't been very pretty. Is really taking a toll on everybody, and so I think ultimately the Canucks just got to a spot where they felt they needed to make a deal for Miller. The Rangers was a place. This was a player that full no movement clause that he was comfortable going. The Rangers have been interested, as you mentioned, Hazy. I mean, really going back years, Chris Drury has an interest in bringing JT Miller back to New York. But, this season there's been a couple previous attempts to get the deal done. And, ultimately, I think from Vancouver's end, the fact they get that first-round pick and they're able to parlay it into some other players, and, they didn't have to retain any salary. was enough that they felt that they had to move. I mean, but clearly Vancouver's banking on some addition by subtraction here. And guess what the next element is going to be? If you say, hey, what's Vancouver going to do next? I think they're out there looking for a center, because even though they got one in Philip Hedl, I mean, that's not a player, of course, even in the short term, that's replacing JT Miller in the lineup.
So, CJ, the Rantanen trade, Craig Conroy makes some moves, and now the JT Miller, do you sense that it's just the dominoes have fallen now and all hell's going to break loose before the Four Nations?
I mean, it feels like all hell has broken loose already. I mean, we've had some pretty big moves here, and they're not all sort of traditional deadline moves. I mean, obviously, the Sharks trade on the weekend, that's with the Stars, that's a traditional deadline move. A good team is loading up, trading a first-round pick and getting some rental players to their lineup. But, a lot of the other trades you saw, like the Flames Flyers move or JT Miller, Rantanen, I mean, there's a lot of layers to that onion. And I'd been hearing that there would be almost like two kind of trade deadlines this year, the period before the Four Nations and then obviously the 2 weeks after leading into the actual deadline. And that, that ended up kind of coming true. And so, we'll see if there's a bit more action this week. I certainly think by the time we get to that Four Nations break, we're less likely to see trades, basically for the 10, 12 days of that tournament. And then it's going to be a sprint to March 7th when we get on the other side of it.
CJ, circling back on the JT Miller situation in Vancouver, where do you think their current, or what do you think their current opinion of Pettersson is? Because they've got until July 1st, and then I believe the no movement clause kicks in, or whatever, the no trade. Like, after that, he's staying in Van or wherever he wants to stay. So where do you think their assessment of him is right now?
Well, they're not happy with him. You pay the player the kind of contract you gave him last March, and, his production has fallen off a cliff. And so, I think the Canucks are going to be somewhat patient here, let him try to find, the level of play that basically earned him that contract. But, I don't know how long that patience will extend. I mean, certainly this is a team trying to get into the playoffs now. And they expect Pettersson to be a front-line, top-of-the-lineup guy for them to help drive that. Now, he hasn't been that player this season. I don't know how reasonable it is to expect him just to flip a switch now that JT Miller is no longer sharing a work environment with him. But, it's fair to say the Canucks have been disappointed with Pettersson, with his level of performance this year, and they're hoping that this is something that can energize him. Because ultimately they went at least far enough down the road with multiple teams to have multiple discussions on a Pettersson deal. I mean, at one point there was a decision. Is it Pettersson or Miller that's being traded? Ultimately, they kept the younger player, also the higher ceiling player, maybe certainly the higher paid player. And so, he's going to have to start performing at some point, or we might be talking about him being traded out of town. But I don't think that'll be in the near term. I think really they're going to see what he can give them here over the balance of the season and then reassess when they get towards the summer.
Well, how complicated could that be, a deal featuring Pettersson with the amount of money he's making? And, let's call it as we see it, and it's just a reality. The last 12 months have been a disaster for the guy. He's not playing anywhere close to his contract value. He's been
Somebody thinks they can turn him around, though, Hazy.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it just seems like it'd be complicated to how many teams would be willing to take him on. I know the cap's going up, but I think there's more pressure on him than maybe any other individual player in the league right now, CJ, to prove his worth. He's the highest paid player on the team, and he's got to be responsible for getting that team back on the right track. And if he doesn't do it, I could see Vancouver trying to flip him.
For sure. I mean, I think that's all fair. Your assessment there of him, bearing that pressure. I mean, he's on like a 60-point pace right now, for a guy among the top paid forwards in the league, someone who has previously had 100-point seasons and consistently anyway been sort of a 90-point type of scorer, to earn that deal. And the issue with Pettersson, I think, is just like, if you're trading him, what are you getting back? I mean, if you trade JT Miller for not quite equal value, which we believe they already did, and then, you're trading Pettersson under these circumstances, I mean, I can't imagine the return looking too good. You're only a couple of years away from Quinn Hughes being out of a contract. I mean, the Canucks don't want to go into a rebuild. What they did is they made a bet on this core, and it's blown up in their faces. I mean, they thought a team with JT Miller, Pettersson, Quinn Hughes at the center of it, getting paid the frontline money, in addition to Demko and some of the other players they have in the organization, was good enough to eventually maybe win a cup. And obviously last year it was good enough for them to win their division, to get deep in the second round, have a chance to eliminate the Oilers, failed to do that. But, now I don't know where they're going to turn. I think clearly the best solution is hoping this changes, because, this is not a good situation when you have a 60-point guy at Pettersson's age and stage of his career, making $11.6 million on the cap. I mean, it's not the right time to trade him and get value back.
With Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. So we were breaking here on CP241050 that I guess the tariffs have been delayed for 30 days, CJ, and maybe that means the booing will stop for the national anthems being played, on, I guess, both sides of the border moving forward. But what is your understanding of how committed the league is to playing the national anthems? Has there ever been any thought or discussion to just get them out of the sport?
I haven't previously heard any real discussion that way. I mean, obviously, you hear it brought up from time to time among fans or maybe in this environment, but in terms of anyone with the power to make that decision, I've never even heard that really debated behind the scenes. It didn't seem like the NHL was too concerned about, the few cases we had over the weekend, where this happened in Canadian arenas. I think there was going to be a lot of focus, and probably still be a lot of focus on the Four Nations tournament, which gets going next week, and you've got that Saturday game, February 15th, Canada-US, could be one where it crops up. I don't know if this tariff news, tonight will change that in terms of how fans are feeling, but I mean, I suppose if this got big enough, you probably the debate or the conversation has to happen. But really, in my time around the league, which has been a pretty long time at this point, I've never heard any meaningful push to get rid of anthems. And obviously, at an international tournament like the one that starts next week, I mean, playing the anthem is a big part of that, and I expect that to continue.
Absolutely. Well, exactly. I mean, it is obviously separate with international tournaments and all that. Yet, it's been a part of the sporting landscape my whole life. I've never, you go to any sporting event, it's natural. It comes with the whole program and the whole experience. Leafs in Calgary tomorrow. I guess Mitch Marner didn't skate today. Uncertain if he'll play tomorrow. Do you have any understanding what's going on with him?
No, I don't have any clarity on what he's dealing with. I mean, obviously, you get this stage of the season, a lot of guys are weathering a lot of sort of different injuries, but it's certainly based on practice there. It looked like there's a chance he misses that game. And, I don't know on this program which Maple Leaf we're more concerned about, but obviously something Hockey Canada will have to keep an eye on, if Mitch Marner is out injured, because he's a big part of what they're expecting at the Four Nations. But, the fact he finished the game in Edmonton, I've not heard anything that suggests this is a major issue. Certainly the Leafs and Craig Berube today didn't seem to be playing it up too much. So, wish I had a little bit more for you in terms of, something tangible, but it does seem like more of a minor, body maintenance kind of issue than, something that's hitting the alarm bells.
So have you heard any, rumblings behind the scenes? You even don't have to name the player, but of any other players on the fence to maybe withdraw from the Four Nations face-off based on either their age or maybe being nicked up? What are we, a week and a half away from it type of thing?
I have not, Noodles. I mean, even Alex Pietrangelo, I think that there was an ongoing discussion there. That they announced it basically a week or 8 days ago that he was out for Canada, but I don't think that took the Canadian team by surprise. I mean, if anything, it seems like players are trying to get back to play. I mean, you've had Jonas Brodin, who's meant to play for the Swedish team, has been out of Minnesota's lineup for a while. He's hoping to get back in here this week and play in that tournament. I think, the Pietrangelo situation was unique. If anything, quite honestly, it seems like the players really want to get there if they absolutely can. And so, I think any other new names that crop up in the next week or so that end up being out of that tournament will just be because their injuries or their physical situation doesn't allow the guys to go. Because, certainly for the younger players in the league, as much as the rest of us are thinking, what is this tournament? There's no history. It's a limited field, all those things. I do think a lot of the players say 30 and down, which is most of the tournament when you look at the rosters. I mean, these guys are pretty anxious to play for their countries.
In terms of, the trades that are happening, we haven't even mentioned the Granlund and CeCe deal going to Dallas over the weekend. with the Maple Leafs, like it seems like there's so much focus on third line center. Is that still your understanding, CJ? And if so,
they like a third line center.
They love a third line center up here. How would you handicap the chances that they actually acquire that piece?
Oh, I think it's still pretty likely, and certainly that seems to be the focus of the organization. I think they'd like to get a defenseman, sort of depth player at minimum as well, sometime before March 7th. I mean, the issue for teams like the Leafs, and it's not just them, is they don't fully know who's available. I mean, Dallas was the rare sort of, team in a situation like the Leafs where they went out and made their deal now. That's purely driven by the fact they have a whole bunch of injuries. Miro Heiskanen's out. They lost Neil Lundqvist for the season. Mason Marchment's been out of their lineup. Sagan's already done for the regular season. So Jim Dell just elected to, take one of the sure things. Obviously, San Jose is one of the few true sellers in the league, and get Michael Granlund and get Cody Ceci in there now. Most teams, whether it's at the top of the standings or in a position that are operating like the Leafs, that they don't yet know what the trade market looks like. There's just a lack of separation there, and I think the sense I'm getting from teams like the Leafs is they're trying to sort out who's actually available. What are we choosing between? When you're making that decision, say for a third line center, you want to make it understanding exactly what the options are. And so, the truth is, I don't think those trades will happen until some point after Four Nations. And I think that's where a lot of the traditional buyers and sellers will get their business done is, at the end of February and that first week of March.
Yeah, and then I guess the follow-up is how comfortable they are with giving up assets, which is a discussion we have every year with this team because, for 9 years now, it's been first-round pick this, first-round pick that, second-round pick, third-round. They don't have many picks. And, they've got Minton, they've got Cowan. I'm sure there's other prospects who other teams would have their eye on. But how comfortable do you think the Maple Leafs are in being all in, quote-unquote, this season?
I feel like they have to be, quite honestly. I mean, just given the uncertainty about, where Mitch Marner's contract's going to be at or how that situation is going to resolve itself. I mean, there's a lot of big, question marks about this organization's direction, I'd say, beyond this season. Just how you even got John Tavares, who's obviously still an important offensive contributor for the Leafs at this stage, and you got this rising cap. I mean, I think around the league, there's probably less certainty pretty much for every team just because, finally the cap is going to be supercharged, but players are going to have different expectations in terms of what they're paid with that. And so, with the league kind of being wide open this season too, I just think it all points to a year where the Leafs have to go in aggressively. I think that's their mindset. We'll see what limitations they end up having with the salary cap, which obviously, in the very near term, in terms of making deals before March 7th, we'll have a say. But I think you put those assets on the table and you live with the fallout. I mean, as you mentioned, they don't even have a first-round pick this year. So if they end up trading it first, it's likely going to be their 2026 pick. And that's how teams trying to go for it year after year after year typically operate. And that's what I expect from the Leafs.
All right, CJ, we'll leave it there. Thank you for doing this.
All right, boys. Have a good night.
Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. Yeah, I mean, that's – I do think this season it does feel like the East, again, is wide open. I think that's why Carolina did what they did. I think you'll see other teams. I think that's why the Rangers still feel like they're in it. They're like, we'll go get – they're not even in the playoffs. Like, as of right now, Tampa, Boston, and the Rangers are all outside of the playoffs. It's crazy. Like, Columbus is in, Ottawa's in, Detroit is in. Detroit did it again last night, beating Vancouver in overtime. Like, Detroit's battled back into the playoff race. They're in a playoff spot right now.
They were out of it, wasn't it, about a month ago? It was
coach
Todd McClellan. Yeah, the coach bump, but I mean, they've been really good. Mm-hmm. I'm concerned about Columbus, that Marchenko now had surgery today, broken jaw. Like, now they're getting nicked up. Like, that might be a team. But again, at the start of the season, we didn't pick them to be there. Islanders picked up a point. They don't lose, though. Like, right now, they've climbed right back. So, remember the other day I said it was 10 teams that were 10 points apart. I think it's 9 now that Montreal slid down. So, if you go Leafs 64 down to the Rangers 64, I think there's 9 teams there within 10 points of each other. There's your 5 games right there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
However you want to slice it, guys, you got to admit, like, It's exciting to watch coming down the stretch. People complain about parity, this, like that, like for these fan bases to be in it, and who knows what comes of it, but it's kind of exciting coming down the stretch, is it not?
Yeah, this is what the NHL dreams of, man. You've got all these different fan bases that now they're going to show up and they're going to buy tickets and they're going to watch games because it might break your way.
Yeah,
it might. It might not.
And the other side, the West is. I mean, I think it's 2 teams for one spot. Really. It's Calgary and Van that are battling, and Van, I thought there was some under the radar. They picked up Pettersson there from
Pettersson,
Pitt. Yeah, like he's a nice player. Like and
O'Connor.
Yeah, that O'Connor works hard, and like I say, I think what they're trying to do is pivot on the fly. But the one thing out of all of this that we haven't focused on that much, and CJ brought it up. How about Elias Pettersson play better? You know what I mean? Like now there's no more excuses. Like there's no, what's going on or whatever. Like JT Miller's gone. If there was a rift or whatever, and I know he didn't speak about it after the game the other night. He said, I don't want to get into it. I just want to move on and play. Well, you're going to have to play really well because they're paying him a lot of money.
And I want to hear, honestly, a media comment or how he conducts himself. It's a big thing for me. Like, if he comes out and his shoulders are down and he just looks pissy and it's like, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about my contract. I don't want to talk about my production. That's all I've heard from the guy for a year. It's time to man up and play damn good because you're a damn good player. Like, his interviews, and it's not all about the interviews. It's all about the on-ice production. But he just looks like he's so pissy for a year straight. Stop being pissy and play. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Guy's the highest paid player on the team.
Dude, I've loved the guy's skill set for years. I've talked about him for years. Wow. And watching him over the last year, I'm like, what on earth has gotten into this guy? So now the other guy's out the door. You better play.
Well, and I'm concerned Hughes left the game the other night and came back, and he was labor, and that's a scary, scary thing for them because he's been unreal. Well,
that's it, man. I mean, it's one of those scenarios where obviously the focus has been on Miller and Pettersson, all of it, and understandably so. Yet it's allowed other things that have not been great to kind of be shuffled under the carpet, so to speak. Not in the market. In Vancouver, they're all over everything, clearly. But, like, Demko has been hurt all year, or when he has played, he hasn't been great. That's a big part of the reason why they're struggling. Sure. Like Kevin Lankinen's been really good, but that you can't rely on him to play 55 games. Or if he's going to, you're probably going to be in a fight for your lives. Yeah. That's just a reality. And Hronek was hurt. And they made some decisions on the point that maybe they made wrong decisions in terms of who to keep, who to let go, etc. And yet it's been all hyper-focused on Pettersson and Miller. And now that distraction seemingly is gone. Well, they got 30 games to figure it out here. Yeah. Because if not, man, you're going to waste a serious, serious opportunity. But, I don't know. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion Elias Pettersson is still a Vancouver Canuck on July 1st. Not even close. Not even close.
Wow.
If he keeps playing like this, man, and they miss the playoffs or they make and he's awful, I don't know. They may just say, we got to cut bait on the whole thing and restart. It's a dangerous game.
How are they going to cut bait on him after July 1st?
Well, that's why I just said I don't think it's a lock he gets to July 1st.
Oh, did you say they would just watch him like a hawk for a month here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like if you're not breathing easier and playing well and looking great, it's
cut bait.
Yeah, you might have to. And it'll be a tough pill to swallow because he didn't get much from it. Like Hedo's a fine player. He's not a superstar. He's had injury problems. He had concussion issues, Hedel, which is concerning. You get a pick that's protected. The Rangers protected the pick. So if it's top 13 this year, you don't get it.
That's what happens when you got to move a guy out of a locker room and you just get pushed into a corner. And it's like, I guess we'll take that.
Yeah.
Well, we judge it too. The best player you look at the best player in a trade is usually that they won that trade, right? JT Miller's the best player in the trade by far, right?
Like when he's on his game, the guy's a stud. He's a really, really good player.
But that being said, I want to see the body of work, what they do with either the space or the people they bring in addition by subtraction, people are saying in Vancouver. You take the mess out of the dressing room, maybe guys flourish. So let's see if that happens.
Yeah, let's see, man. I don't know. You're trying to do that on the fly, right, this season.
Yep.
And the thing is about the West, LA's not out of the woods either. Like, LA's only got 60 points. They got games in hand, but Calgary and Vancouver share a division with them. Calgary's a point back of LA. You're
right.
So maybe you got that second wild card and the third seed. I would probably bet on LA figuring it out, but maybe there's two spots. Maybe they both.
You're right. Games played is big in that, but you're right. Like right now, Calgary's 1 point back, but LA's got 2 games in hand.
Right.
I think that separation is really where at St. Louis, but we look at it and it's just that 5 games. I keep coming back to it.
Yeah, no,
you just
5 good, 5 bad. It's going to have a big effect on how you operate.
And it makes it interesting. That's the reality of it here is. Anaheim's had some wins, and they're kind of,
they're out of it.
I understand it. I'm saying, but a lot of those teams, Anaheim, Seattle, Nashville, Chicago, San Jose, to end up where they are, they're talking 70 in the 70s for points. They're going to get wins, right? And what they're going to do is take wins off of people who really need it. That's the biggest challenge.
I'll bet you this guy in Utah is not going to. He's going to sit. These guys miss, although they're still. The Arizona Coyotes, he's going to say, okay, guys, what the hell are we doing here?
Well, both his teams stink, man. The Jazz are horrendous. He's got 2 teams. Everyone's like, Utah, man, Utah. Yeah. It's like, all right.
Well, what do you make of the leaked, I don't know, is that the leaked photos or the leaked potential logos for Utah? Is it the Mammoth?
They look all right. Mammoth and Outlaw. The Outlaws one look exactly what we were mocking on Friday. It's going to be a cowboy hat and a mustache. Like, everyone does the exact same.
No, the guy's got he's got a mask. He got a COVID mask on instead.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's a bandana over his face or whatever.
That's an outlaw.
Yeah, it's okay, I got it. There it is. It's an outlaw. I think the Mammoth
looks like
It
Chewbacca.
looks all right, though. I can get down with Mammoth. I think that's pretty good. All right, best bet still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Super Bowl week down in New Orleans. We're going to have picks later in the week. We're going to have Luke come on. We're going to have a lot of people coming on from New Orleans. And every incredible playoff moment on TSN is powered by Bud Light, a refreshing taste that's easy to enjoy. Tune in game day for pulse-pounding action. How about Myles Garrett asking for a trade out of Cleveland as well?
Are you surprised?
Ooh.
No, but it's sickening if you're a Browns fan, man. Like, this guy he's the most disruptive defensive player in football. He has been for years. First overall pick, and it all comes back to the Deshaun Watson deal. It just screwed up everything, and now this guy is going public saying, I'm out. I want out. It doesn't mean they're going to trade him. But
looking back on it, you didn't think that the Deshaun Watson transaction was going to lead to all of this. Everybody must have been jacked, saying, players included, saying, we've got a guy that can take us to where we want to go.
Yep.
Nobody expected all of this nonsense.
I mean, the guy, there were some red flags, I think we can all agree upon, with Deshaun Watson. But on the field play in Houston, the guy was elite. He was a really good player. And it's just never translated, and now he's injured again, and all the dead money, and they never win, and it's just a nightmare. And if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm calling Cleveland saying, you write out what the trade is. What is it? Multiple first-round picks, third-round pick, a player on the roster. Tell me what I need to give you, because Myles Garrett, this is the Reggie White trade all over again. Like, the Packers went out, got Reggie White. They won a Super Bowl, what was it, a year later, 2 years later? Guy is the best edge rusher in football. He's an absolute machine. 29 years old. It's got to be a team that's within a 2 or 3 year window here, because he is 29. He's not, a rookie or anything like that. But it's like every league wants in on this, right? Every
didn't
league
they come back
like,
and say we actually have no intention of moving you?
They could. They have him under contract.
I think that's what their stance was. It's Twitter. I mean, I don't know what reports to believe or not, but there was one. I saw a bunch where they're like, we have no intention of moving this player.
Well,
but then the player becomes disruptive, and
you're asking for it if you don't move the player. But same thing as Fox. I'd be like, you're not going to go where you want to go.
Well, exactly. And to my knowledge, he hasn't requested any specific team that he wants to go to. But he's not showing up for OTAs. He's not going to show up for camp. It's going to be it's just going to turn into a mess. And Cleveland is a mess anyway. So I understand why they're probably thinking we got to at some point stop the bleeding here. Their whole team is Myles Garrett in that defense.
And Hayes, it like people always say, it is a business. And this guy, the season ended, and he probably sat with friends, his agent, whoever he deals with, and he's like, your business, the Myles Garrett business, needs to get away from the Cleveland Browns. Just for your own brand. You need winning involved with your name, possibly a Super Bowl, to enhance your business. The business of being a Cleveland Brown sucks.
It's awful.
Yeah, it's awful.
Awful. It is.
Yeah. When is it going to happen in Buffalo where players are it's already happened in years past, but Jack Eichel was being a Sabre right now is bad for Jack Eichel business, so I'm taking it somewhere else. And it sucks, but when your team's in a spot like that, individuals, their own individual business is this organization is bad for my business, therefore I got to take it somewhere else. Mm-hmm. The whole thing, how people look at me, how my jersey looks in a garbage team. I want everything about my business as an individual athlete to be better perceived. And why wouldn't you want that?
Especially if you put in time,
O'Reilly
right?
had problems.
You've been around forever. You've tried. You've had different coaches, different quarterbacks. The guy he panned out. They took him first overall. The guy, he's everything you could ask for in a defensive player. He's been Defensive Player of the Year. Again, he is, in my opinion, there's no one that would scare a left tackle more than Myles Garrett. No one in the league coming off the edge like him that would scare you. Like he does, and he's done everything he possibly can, and the Cleveland Browns have not pulled their weight. And that it's like what we talked about with Luka. Dallas looked at it and said, we don't believe we're going to get a return on that investment. We're going to give you $350 million, and you're going to show up out of shape. That's their perception. Doesn't mean it's accurate or whatever. We don't know how it's all going to play out, but that was a business decision, and that's what Myles Garrett's doing here. He's like, I want out. And he's going to demand to get paid, too. I mean, that's what comes with it, too, right? Whoever acquires him is immediately going to make him the highest paid defensive player in the league. Immediately, they're ripping up his contract and repaying him. So
I guarantee you that Luka situation, although there was a perception and everybody knew that what they were dealing with, but I bet you there was one isolated incident where, some kind of trainer or athletic therapist, he was supposed to be doing something, and they walked into a back room, and this guy was eating chicken. It was something where somebody was just blown away, and they were like, I can't believe I just saw that. And I'm telling you, it filtered up the chain, and somebody was oh, my God. You know what I mean? Blow off therapy. I don't know, but there was something. It was something there. They're like, that's it, man. That is it.
They showed up, a trainer showed up at his house, and it looked like Hayes' dorm from college. Just pizzas.
100%. That's what happened. Trying to get the door open, it's blocked by bottles and boxes.
I've had that happen. Trainer walked right in my kitchen, just like this, chucking stuff behind his head into a garbage bag. No way, man.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a business too. The trainers, they work for the team. They were the GM's talking to that trainer a lot, right?
Yeah.
You think it's a sanctuary in there. It's not. Those trainers are. What did you see from him today? What did he weigh in at? Did he show up on time? What's he looking like? Oh, really?
Oh, the weigh-in. That's a problem. I get how much money you think he was trying to give the trainer on after an off day, showing up for that mandatory weigh-in, and he's just been going to town and you're 5 pounds heavier.
If you were really desperate, I think you wouldn't be shy to throw 20 G's at a trainer and say, write down that number. You want it or not?
20 grand cash, paper bag.
If you were in a desperate mode where if you weighed over and someone was really going to hate you, you say, here, there's 20 G's in the back of my car. You want it? Put down that number and tell the coach.
I know of, and I'm not going to say the name, so you guys know I played for several organizations. I know of a guy coming back off of a road trip, and it was 12 heavier than his playing weight. 12, and we were gone for a week. So,
wow. 12 pounds, man.
12 pounds.
That is big nights every night and like late night wings. That is like
that's
but it's pregame meals, walking
morning.
out. Yeah, pregame meals, walking out with 6 cookies and a napkin, and like that type of stuff. Like you know what it's like. Those pregame meals. You could sit down and
I know, but
and
a lot of
gorge
times
yourself.
the coaches and assistant coaches are in there. If you're a fatty and you're wheeling out with a tub of ice cream and 6 cookies and a napkin, you're insane. Like, you would make people break their neck looking at you walking out saying, look at that guy right now. You don't even touch the ice cream.
And you go
And
up for a
if you
nap.
do, you fake a phone call until the coaches leave, and you go back in there and do your work. You never do that in front of them.
And then you go up for a nap, and then you come down for the snack at 4 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
And there's toast and cereals and all.
Cookies
You can go right
again.
back to work
Cookies
again.
again.
and
Everything.
carbs. That's all it
Yeah.
probably is. Cookies and
it's just
carbs.
12-pack. I'll
Yeah,
never
that's
forget.
a lot of weight, man.
One of the
And that's-
veteran guys called him out and just was like, okay, knock it off type of thing. So it was not good.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, let's listen, man. It's been a wild 48 hours, and we haven't even mentioned. How about McIlroy being able to like moonwalk down 18 at Pebble with a 3-shot lead? Like, that's got to be one of the coolest moments. He hit a 3-iron off the tee because he didn't even care. He's like,
Why
just
not?
fairway
No,
finder.
If he hit anything else, I was going to just jump through my TV.
Yep.
But never mind the 3-iron. Dude, on 14, he was hitting 400-yard drives around the corner. That
Yeah.
was outrageous. No one's ever taken that line. Like, I played that hole where it was driver, smash a 3-wood, and then hammer a 9-iron.
Mm-hmm.
He hit driver 7-iron.
Yeah, it's absurd, man. It registered 399 yards.
Yeah.
That's how hard he was hitting his drive. That's how far he was. And it was like a pitching wedge going
Guess
over that
what
tree.
the brand name of the driver is?
It's TaylorMade.
That's exactly right.
Well, and he changed to a TP5 too, right? Which is
Isn't that
golf
bizarre? He was like, yeah, I was just chipping around and I hit a couple and I liked the way it reacted. The guy grabbed some TP5s out of the shop.
Yeah, and just started. It goes out there and wheels around Pebble and shoots 21 under.
Yeah.
It's incredible because he played TP5X forever because he liked the feel, I guess, around the greens and stuff.
Dude, it's a great win for that guy. He can
it's
keep the
outstanding.
flies off for a little bit because every time that guy tees it up and he doesn't win, people are like, what the? But it'll just ramp back up at Augusta. When is this guy going to win another
100%,
major?
100%. And like Scheffler returned and played well, and now you go to Waste Management this week, and McIlroy's not in the field, but he'll be there at Torrey Pines, I believe, the week after that, right?
I'll
for the
tell you what, that
Genesis.
Jay Monahan, as soon as he saw Seb Straka dropping down that leaderboard, he started drinking heavily.
Big time, dude.
McIlroy going up and Seb going down, he was like, keep doing it.
It was like it was the Undertaker meme with Jay Monahan and Sepp Straka after 54 holes.
He's like, I can't have Seb
I can't
do this again.
Yeah, you can't. You have to move and let Rory take off. And
Yeah.
yeah, McIlroy, he hit that QI 35 TaylorMade driver all over that place.
Yeah.
And the TP5, it was great, man. He looked good. And that was me picking a winner too. I'm up 10-2 in Doogie's standings. So we want to point
I
that
love
out,
it.
Noodles.
What
All
is
right,
like?
good
Why
for you.
isn't it just a one spot, or Doogie
No,
likes
the
the
scoring,
10?
Doogie's scoring system is 10 points for an outright win,
Yeah.
5 points for a top 5, 2 points for a top 10.
Yeah.
So you had Scheffler, who finished T9. That's 2 points for you. And I had McIlroy outright, which was 10 points for me, 10-2.
All right.
So
I
it's
got
a long
pretty good
season.
line. I got a pretty good line on the waste management.
Yeah, okay.
Oh yeah.
All right, we'll get to those picks on Wednesday.
I do have breaking news for you two.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to Waste Management.
You're going to the Waste Management. Explain. How are you going? Are you down there
Never
with
know.
the Sens, or what's going on down there?
No, I'm meeting a few buddies there.
Oh,
That makes
Okay.
me sick that you get to walk. You're not even going to look at one golf shot.
that is disgusting that you're going.
Well, I'm not like we're not getting.
Joe from the bridge,
Listen.
play the video of the guy from the waste management. This is going to be Noodles at the waste
it's
management.
not.
I swear. Look at this guy. Look at this guy walk. This is at the waste management. Look at
Yeah.
that guy.
Well, we've got a
backwards hold up.
Dude,
We
the
got a little
backwards
plan.
hold up is such a dangerous game with no hard hat on. Like, he just cannot.
That'll be me. Here's the thing. I'm on the show Monday. My flight gets me in time to be on the show Monday. My voice might be a little bit of rougher. But
just get a replacement.
in.
Yeah, do me a favor.
No.
I don't know if because we're coming off the Super Bowl. I can't handle
well,
that.
We're watching the Super Bowl. We're watching the Super Bowl.
We know.
All
We
right.
know.
In
We
Vegas
know.
or in Phoenix. It'll be
All
good.
right.
We'll be enjoying
All right.
ourselves.
Okay, we'll come back with our best bets powered by FanDuel. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Steven Stamkos has always loved playing against the Ottawa Senators, and I think that continues tonight. Got a Stamkos parlay. Stamkos 1+ points, Stamkos 3+ shots on net, paying plus 210. Stamkos tonight. That's your play. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Live same-game parlays are now available for every NHL game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 18+, physically located in Ontario.
Did you actually research that?
Doogie actually sent me a note.
Wow. It's a nice little nugget.
Absolutely.
Right?
Stammer
Doogie coming
loves
through in the
playing
clutch.
the Sens. Absolutely. And Ottawa's won 4 in a row, right? So everything's coming up for Ottawa, and we'll see what comes of it tonight, the lone game in the NHL. We'll see if there's any blockbuster trades between now and tomorrow at 4 p.m. as well.
Nothing will shock me anymore. But I love it. Teams aren't and we've always talked about in the past, Hayes, teams are married to their players. No, we're not changing. Switch it up. If you don't win, what the hell's the difference?
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Why?
true.
Why don't get married to something that doesn't work organizationally? I love it. I love seeing trades, movement, all of it.
Let's get crazy, man. I love it too. It makes it so much more fun and interesting, and the fans benefit in the end. I know there's some heartbreak for individual clubs, but it makes things very, very intriguing in the dog days of sports, and that's kind of where we're at right now. All right, thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate it. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.